Sometimes, the most terrifying things aren't ghosts or monsters. They're hidden in plain sight. A quiet hotel room, a locked closet, a cleaning shift like any other. But one housekeeper, Maria, would open a door that should never have been opened, and what she found would change everything. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Maria Santos had worked at the Blue Haven Hotel for nearly 4 years. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and she had gotten used to the rhythm of her days, changing bed sheets, wiping mirrors, emptying trash bins. The rooms told silent stories of strangers she would never meet. Sometimes they were messy, sometimes spotless, but always predictable. That Thursday morning began like any other. The morning sun cast a pale light through the lobby windows as Maria clocked in at 7:30 a.m. The scent of freshly brewed coffee from the hotel cafe mixed with a faint aroma of cleaning chemicals from her cart. Room 414 was on her list for late morning cleaning. According to the front desk, the guest had checked out early, leaving the key card in the express drop box. Maria didn't think twice about it. She pushed her cart into the elevator and rode up to the 4th floor, the soft hum of the lift filling the silence. When she opened the door to 414, everything looked normal. The bed was unmade, a damp towel hung over the bathroom door, and a half-empty bottle of water sat on the desk. She moved with her usual efficiency, stripping the sheets, gathering the towels, wiping the surfaces. But as she bent to pick up a pillow from the floor, she noticed something odd. The closet door, near the entrance, had a thin strip of light peeking from the bottom. She remembered clearly. The closets in these rooms didn't have lights unless the sliding door was opened. Her first thought was that maybe the guest had left it ajar. She walked over and gave a gentle push. It didn't budge. Locked. Maria frowned. Guests almost never locked these sliding closets. Most didn't even notice the tiny latch near the top. She tugged again, harder. It rattled slightly, as if something inside had shifted. Her pulse quickened. Sometimes guests left valuables behind, but it was hotel policy to report anything suspicious immediately. Still, she felt a strange tug of curiosity. She slid her hand along the top edge of the door until her fingers found the latch. It clicked open. The door slid to the side with a soft scrape. At first, she thought she was looking at a bundle of laundry on the floor, a small shape wrapped in a pale blanket. She stepped closer, her eyes adjusting to the dim light inside. It wasn't laundry. It was a baby. Maria froze, her breath catching in her throat. The baby's eyes were wide open, staring up at her. Its tiny chest rose and fell quickly, as if it had been crying but had run out of strength. She knelt down, her hands trembling. "Oh my God," she whispered in Spanish. The child looked no older than 6 months, with a tuft of dark hair and flushed cheeks. There was no note, no bag, nothing. Maria's first instinct was to pick the baby up, but she hesitated. She'd had enough training to know she shouldn't move anything until security arrived. Her heart pounded as she stood up, backing away toward the door. She reached for her walkie-talkie and called down to the front desk. "This is Maria in 414. You need to send security up here right now. It's urgent." There was a pause on the other end. "What's the problem, Maria?" the receptionist asked, his tone casual. She swallowed hard. "There's a baby in the closet." The line went silent for 2 seconds that felt like an hour. Then, "We're sending someone up." While waiting, Maria stayed near the door, glancing back at the closet every few seconds. The baby hadn't made a sound, which somehow made the room feel even more tense. Within minutes, a heavy knock sounded at the door. She opened it to see Mr. Grant, the head of security, a tall man in his 50s with graying hair. "Show me," he said simply. Maria stepped aside. Grant knelt by the closet, looking at the baby for a long moment before speaking into his radio. "We need paramedics, room 414. Possible abandonment case." The paramedics arrived quickly, their bright red bags swinging at their sides. They lifted the baby gently, wrapping it in a fresh blanket. Maria stood to the side, feeling like she was watching a scene from a TV drama, only this was painfully real. One of the medics turned to her. "You the one who found him?" She nodded. "Good thing you did," he said. "Wouldn't have lasted much longer in there." The words hit her like a punch. She hadn't realized how cold the closet had been until now. After they left, the room felt empty, but not peaceful. The closet door hung slightly open, and Maria couldn't stop staring at it. Mr. Grant told her to take a break, but she found herself wandering the hallway instead. Who would leave a baby like that? How had no one noticed? She thought about the guest who had checked out early. The name on the record was Daniel Moore, but she doubted that would mean much. People gave fake names all the time. By noon, police officers were in the hotel, talking to the manager and checking security footage. Maria sat in the staff lounge, sipping a cup of coffee that had gone cold in her hands. When an officer finally came to speak to her, she told him everything she could remember. The sound of the latch, The stillness of the baby. The fact that the guest hadn't ordered room service or requested anything unusual. The officer scribbled notes, his brow furrowed. "We'll need you to come down to the station later to give a formal statement." Maria agreed, though her stomach churned at the thought. She tried to return to work, but every time she opened another closet, her hands shook. She started noticing every small sound, the click of a door down the hall, the hum of the vending machine, the muffled laughter of guests in their rooms. The hotel felt different now, like something had shifted under its polished surface. By the time her shift ended at 3 p.m., she felt drained. She clocked out and walked home slowly, her mind replaying the scene in the closet again and again. That night, she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the baby's face staring up at her from the shadows. When her alarm rang the next morning, she dressed for work automatically, but something in her chest felt heavy. She wasn't sure she could walk into another hotel room again, not without wondering what might be behind each door. Maria stood at the bus stop the next morning, clutching her lunch bag. The air was damp and heavy with the smell of rain, though the clouds hadn't broken yet. Every sound felt louder than usual. The hiss of a passing bus, the distant honk of a taxi, the chatter of two schoolboys behind her. She kept thinking about the baby's eyes, wide, unblinking. It wasn't just shock she'd felt yesterday. It was the way the silence in that room seemed to press against her chest. When she reached the Blue Haven Hotel, the lobby felt different. People still checked in, luggage wheels clattering across the marble floor, but there was a strange tension in the air. The receptionist barely looked at her, busy on the phone. She could hear fragments of his conversation. "Yes, the police have the footage." "No, we can't release it." Maria pushed her cart toward the staff elevator, tried to avoid eye contact with anyone. She didn't want to be the woman who found the baby. On her cleaning list today was room 321st. She stepped inside and got to work. The curtains were drawn tight, the air heavy with the smell of stale smoke. She opened the window a crack for air, then started stripping the bed. But halfway through tucking in the fresh sheets, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They were heavier than a guess, and they stopped right outside her door. A firm knock followed. Maria opened it to find Detective Harris from yesterday. Tall, square-shouldered, with sharp brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. He held a small notebook in one hand. "Morning, Maria," he said. "Mind if I ask a few more questions?" She nodded, stepping aside so he could enter. He didn't sit, just stood near the window, glancing around the room like he was taking in every detail. "We reviewed the security footage," he began. "We saw a man leaving 414 yesterday morning, carrying a small duffel bag. We think he might be connected to the baby." Maria felt her chest tighten. "Do you know who he is?" "We have a name. The ID he used was fake, but we're running it through other systems." He was careful, kept his head down, avoided cameras where he could. Maria thought for a moment. "I didn't see anyone unusual on that floor. I started cleaning after he checked out." Harris jotted something in his notebook. "Did you notice anything else in the room? Anything missing, broken, out of place?" She shook her head. It looked normal. Until... She trailed off. "Until the closet," he finished for her. His voice was calm, but his eyes stayed fixed on hers. He thanked her, then slipped her his card. "If you remember anything at all, call me." After he left, Maria found it harder to concentrate. Every time she bent over to tuck in sheets or wipe down a counter, she half expected to hear a sound behind her. By mid-morning, she reached room 407. The guest hadn't checked out yet, so she knocked twice before entering. A man in his late 30s opened the door. His hair was slicked back, and his shirt was half-buttoned. "Housekeeping," she said. He stepped aside without a word, his eyes following her as she entered. The room was dim, curtains drawn, air smelling faintly of cologne. Maria moved quickly, replacing towels and emptying the trash. She could feel the man's gaze on her the entire time, and it made her skin prickle. When she finished and stepped into the hallway, she let out a slow breath. She didn't like being alone in rooms with guests anymore. Around noon, she took her break in the small staff lounge. A few of the other housekeepers were eating lunch, chatting quietly. But when Maria entered, the conversation dipped. She could feel their eyes on her. "You're the one who found that baby, right?" asked Rosa, a part-time maid with a curious streak. Maria hesitated. "Yes." Rosa leaned in. "People are saying the guy who left him might still be around. Some think he came back." Maria frowned. "Who's saying that?" Rosa shrugged. "Just talk. You know how people are." The rest of the day passed slowly. Maria kept glancing over her shoulder, checking mirrors, listening for unfamiliar footsteps. She finished her shift without incident. But when she walked out into the cool evening air, she noticed a man standing across the street. He was leaning against a lamppost, hands in his pockets, eyes hidden by dark sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. He wasn't looking directly at her, at least not obviously, but something about his stillness made her uneasy. She crossed the street in the opposite direction, pretending to check her phone. When she glanced back a minute later, the man was gone. That night, Maria tried to relax in her small apartment. She made a pot of rice and beans, put on the TV, but her mind kept wandering. She thought about the baby again, where he was now, if he was safe. Around 9 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You should stop talking to police." Maria's stomach dropped. She read it twice, then a third time. Her first instinct was to call Detective Harris, but fear held her still. Who had sent this? How did they get her number? She didn't reply. She locked her doors, checked her windows twice, and left the TV on for background noise. When morning came, her eyes felt gritty from lack of sleep. She almost called in sick but decided against it. Staying home would only give her more time to think. At the hotel, she kept her head down and worked quickly. By the time she reached the 10th floor, she felt a little calmer. Then, in room 1012, she found something that made her heart race all over again. It was just a piece of paper, folded neatly on the desk. No hotel stationery, just plain white. She hesitated before unfolding it. Inside, written in uneven block letters, were 4 words: "You're next, Maria." Her hands went cold. She scanned the room, but everything else was spotless. Bed made, towels folded, no sign of the guest. Someone had been here. Someone knew her name, and she had no idea why. Maria stood frozen in the middle of room 1012, the note still in her trembling hands. She read the words again. "You're next, Maria." The handwriting was blocky and uneven, almost as if the writer had tried to disguise their style. Her eyes darted toward the closet, but it stood wide open, empty except for 2 hangers. The bathroom was spotless, nothing out of place. Her mind raced. Could this be some sick prank from another staff member? Or was it from the same person who left the baby? She forced herself to breathe slowly, folded the paper, and slid it into her pocket. She knew she had to tell someone. But a strange fear gripped her. The text message last night, the man across the street, and now this. She finished cleaning the room as quickly as she could, her hands moving automatically. The vacuum's hum filled the space, but every creak in the hallway made her glance at the door. When she stepped into the corridor, she noticed a tall man in a gray hoodie turning the corner at the far end. He wasn't carrying a cleaning cart, and he wasn't dressed like a guest. He walked with quick, purposeful steps. Maria debated calling out to him, but the thought of him turning around made her skin prickle. Instead, she wheeled her cart toward the elevator and pressed the button twice, willing it to come faster. In the staff lounge, she found Rosa and another housekeeper, Linda, sipping coffee. Rosa noticed Maria's pale face. "What happened?" Rosa asked. Maria glanced at the door, making sure no one else was listening. "I found something in one of the rooms. A note." Rosa's eyes widened. "What did it say?" Maria hesitated, then whispered. "It said, 'You're next.'" Linda frowned. "That's not funny, Maria. You should tell security." Maria pulled the folded paper from her pocket and handed it over. Linda read it, her lips pressing into a thin line. "This isn't a joke. Go see Mr. Grant now." Reluctantly, Maria walked to the security office. Mr. Grant was inside, hunched over a bank of monitors showing different parts of the hotel. "Maria," he greeted her, eyes flicking up. "Something wrong." She handed him the note without speaking. He read it, then looked at her sharply. "Where did you find this?" "In room 1012. On the desk." He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "That room checked out this morning. A man, mid-30s, paid in cash. Didn't leave much behind." Maria crossed her arms. "Do you think it's connected to the baby?" Mr. Grant didn't answer right away. "We'll review the footage from that floor. For now, don't be alone in the hallways. Work in pairs if possible." She returned to her cart feeling no safer. The idea of working in pairs was nice in theory, but the cleaning schedule rarely lined up neatly like that. By mid-afternoon, Maria was assigned to clean a suite on the top floor. The elevator ride up was slow, each ding echoing in the narrow metal space. When she stepped out, the hallway was empty. Too empty. Usually she'd hear a TV through one of the doors, or a muffled laugh, or the clink of dishes from room service. Today, there was only silence. The suite, 1502, was larger than most, living room, bedroom, and a small kitchen. She moved quickly, starting in the bathroom. The strong smell of bleach told her someone else had cleaned it recently, though no one had signed a housekeeping log. That was odd. She made a note of it and moved into the bedroom. As she adjusted the curtains, she noticed a small smudge on the glass, the shape of a handprint, not from a child, but from someone with large fingers, pressed firmly enough to leave the outline clear. She stepped closer, peering out the window. 15 floors below, the street looked like a toy model, cars inching along, people like ants. But on the opposite corner, next to a bus stop, stood a man in a gray hoodie. The same man she'd seen earlier. Her heart thudded. Could he see her from here? She stepped back quickly, letting the curtain fall into place. Maria finished the suite in record time, her eyes darting to the door every few minutes. As she left, she passed another staff member in the hall, a young bellboy named Andre. "You okay, Maria?" he asked. "Just tired," she lied. On her way back down, she spotted Detective Harris in the lobby, talking to the hotel manager. His eyes found hers, and he gave a small nod, motioning for her to wait. When he joined her, his voice was low. "We pulled more footage. The man who left 414, we think he stayed in another room later. He's been in and out of the building several times." Maria swallowed. "I think I saw him. Twice." Harris's gaze sharpened. "Where?" She told him about the hallway and the view from the suite. He scribbled in his notebook. "If you see him again, don't approach. Call me immediately." She nodded. The rest of the shift dragged on. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow longer. When she finally clocked out, the thought of walking home alone unsettled her. She chose a busier route, sticking close to groups of people. But halfway home, she got the prickling sense of being followed. She glanced over her shoulder. There, half a block back, was a man in a gray hoodie. He wasn't rushing, but his pace matched hers. Maria's heart pounded. She crossed the street. So, did he? She ducked into a small grocery store, pretending to browse. After a few minutes, she risked a glance out the window. The man was standing across the street, facing the store. She grabbed a bottle of water she didn't need, paid quickly, and left for the side door. She took a different route home, her eyes scanning every corner. When she finally shut her apartment door behind her, she leaned against it, her breathing ragged. She double-locked it, then checked the windows. She didn't see the man again that night. But just before midnight, her phone buzzed. Another text from the same unknown number. "You're making this harder for yourself." Maria stared at the screen, her hand cold and sweaty. She knew one thing for certain. Whoever this was, they weren't done with her. Maria didn't sleep much after that second text. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow of her phone screen on the nightstand. Every creak from the apartment above made her muscles tense. By morning, her eyes were red and puffy. She thought about calling in sick, but then she imagined a stack of unclean rooms and the gossip that would spread among staff. Staying home wouldn't solve anything. She left for work earlier than usual, hoping the streets would feel safer in the daylight. But as she stepped onto the bus, her heart sank. At the back, near the last row, a man in a gray hoodie sat slouched against the window. He didn't look at her directly, but she could see his reflection in the bus's side mirror, his head tilted slightly, as if he was listening. Maria sat near the driver, pretending to scroll through her phone. The bus rattled along, stopping at lights, picking up more passengers. She didn't dare turn around, but she could feel the man's presence. When the bus stopped near the hotel, Maria waited until the last second to stand, hoping he wouldn't follow. But as she stepped off, she caught sight of him in the glass doors of a bakery. Just a shadowy reflection, moving in the same direction. Inside the Blue Haven, the familiar smell of coffee and polished floors brought no comfort. Rosa was at the housekeeping station, pulling fresh linens from a cart. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Rosa said, frowning. Maria leaned close. "He's still following me." Rosa's eyes widened. "Who?" "The man in the hoodie. I saw him again on the bus." Rosa glanced toward the lobby. "You need to tell Mr. Grant." Maria did. She found the security chief in his office, flipping through printed stills from the CCTV cameras. She told him about the man's constant appearances in the street, the hallway, now the bus. Grant tapped the edge of the desk with his pen. "We've been reviewing footage from the last 3 days. He's been spotted near the service elevators twice. Never books a room, never uses the front entrance. He's coming in through the loading dock." Maria's stomach twisted. "Why?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Grant said. "For now, stick to crowded areas. Don't go anywhere alone." Her first assignment of the day was room 909. She wheeled her cart down the hall, her mind replaying Grant's words. She kept glancing over her shoulder, but the hallway was empty. Room 909 was a standard double, quiet and neat. She changed the sheets, wiped down the surfaces, and moved the bathroom. While scrubbing the sink, she noticed something odd in the wastebasket, a crumpled receipt from a hardware store. She smoothed it out. It was dated yesterday, 5:42 p.m., and listed duct tape, rope, and a box cutter. Her pulse quickened. Guests left strange things behind all the time, but this felt wrong. She slipped the receipt into her pocket and finished cleaning quickly. As she stepped back into the hallway, she nearly bumped into Detective Harris. "Maria," he said, noting her startled look. "You all right?" She handed him the receipt without a word. He scanned it, his brow furrowing. "Which room?" 909. It was in the bathroom trash. He scribbled in his notebook. "We'll check who stayed there." Then his tone softened. "And I'll make sure someone walks you to the bus today." The next few hours passed in a blur. Maria worked in pairs with Linda, moving from room to room. Even so, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her. Around noon, Harris came back with news. The man in the hoodie? We think he's the same person from 414, but he's been careful, no clear face shots. Maria's skin prickled. So he's still here? We're not sure, Harris said, but we're watching. By the time her lunch break came, Maria's appetite was gone. She sat in the staff lounge, sipping water. Rosa joined her, talking about her weekend plans, but Maria could barely focus. Halfway through, Linda burst into the lounge, her face pale. Maria, you need to come. Now. Maria stood quickly. What happened? Linda lowered her voice. Room 1115. I was cleaning and there's something in there you need to see. They took the elevator together. When they entered 1115, Maria's heart jumped. On the bed lay a small, worn baby blanket, pale yellow, with a faint stain near one corner. Maria knew that blanket. It was the same one the baby had been wrapped in. She turned to Linda. Who's staying here? Checked in this morning. Alone. Didn't give a phone number. Maria's throat felt tight. Where is he now? Linda shook her head. No idea. Maria picked up the hotel phone and called Mr. Grant. Within minutes, he and 2 officers were in the room. They bagged the blanket and started dusting for prints. Stay with Linda, Grant told her. We'll find him. The rest of the shift felt endless. Every door seemed like it could hide him. Every passing guessed a threat. When the day finally ended, Maria waited in the lobby for the promised escort to the bus stop. But Harris was busy with another call, so Grant walked her instead. The street outside was still busy with evening traffic, but Maria's eyes scanned every shadow. She boarded the bus, sat near the front, and clutched her bag tightly. As the bus pulled away, she glanced out the window. On the opposite sidewalk, leaning casually against a lamppost, was the man in the gray hoodie. He was smiling. Maria's hands gripped the seat, so tightly her knuckles turned white. The man in the gray hoodie stood on the sidewalk as the bus pulled away, his head tilted like he was studying her. Even from a distance, that smile wasn't friendly. It was the kind that made your skin crawl. She forced herself to face forward. The bus rattled along, each stop bringing her closer to home. But every time it slowed, she checked the side mirrors, half expecting to see him following in a car or on foot. When she reached her stop, she stayed seated until the last possible moment. She stepped off quickly, scanning the street. No sign of him. Relief tried to creep in, but she didn't trust it. She walked fast, keys in her hand, eyes flicking to every doorway and alley. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, double-checked the windows, and dropped her bag on the couch. She didn't turn on the TV. She needed silence to listen for anything unusual. An hour later, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number again. Nice blanket. Her breath caught. The baby blanket. Whoever this was, they knew she'd seen it. They knew she'd been in that room. Her hands shook as she typed back before thinking. Who are you? The reply came in seconds. You'll see soon enough. She tossed the phone on the couch and paced the small living room. Calling Detective Harris was a smart move, but part of her feared that telling him would make things worse. That somehow, the man would know she'd spoken again. That night, she barely slept. Every car that passed outside made her sit up in bed. By morning, her decision was made. She couldn't keep this to herself. She arrived at the hotel early and went straight to Harris, who was talking to Mr. Grant in the lobby. She showed him the messages. He frowned. We can try to trace the number, but if he's smart, he's using a burner phone. Still, this is good evidence. Keep every message you get. Mr. Grant looked at her with concern. Maria, maybe you should take a few days off. She shook her head. If I stay home, I'll just be alone with this. I'd rather be here where there are cameras. The morning started with a deep clean of the 7th floor. Maria worked with Rosa, moving from room to room. Around 10:30, they reached 715. The room was empty, but the bed was unmade, and the TV remote lay on the floor. As Maria pulled back the sheets, something small fell to the carpet, a hotel key card, but not for room 715. She picked it up. It was for room 1210. Rosa frowned. That room's not even on the cleaning list today. They brought it straight to Grant, who checked the system. 1210 hasn't been rented in 2 weeks. It should be locked. He pulled the master key from his belt and went with them to the 12th floor. The hallway was quiet. He slid the key into 1210 and pushed the door open. Maria's stomach tightened. The curtains were drawn tight, the air stale. A single duffel bag sat on the bed. Grant stepped inside first, unzipping the bag. Inside were clothes, a pair of gloves, a roll of duct tape, and a stack of printed photos. Maria leaned closer. Her chest went cold. They were photos of her. One of her leaving the bus. Another of her walking into the hotel. One from the grocery store window. Rosa's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God! Grant zipped the bag shut and turned to them. Out! Now! Back in the hallway, Harris arrived with 2 uniformed officers. Grant handed him the key card. He's been staying here without checking in, probably sneaking in through the service areas. The officers swept the floor, checking every room and stairwell. They didn't find him. Maria worked the rest of the shift under constant watch. Harris told her to leave with an escort again, and this time, 2 officers walked her to the bus stop. But even with them nearby, she felt exposed. She scanned every face in the crowd, every car that passed. No hoodie this time. When she got home, she checked her apartment door for scratches or signs of tampering. Nothing. She tried to eat dinner, but her appetite was gone. She sat on the couch, phone in her lap. Hours passed. Just when she started to think maybe the man was gone, the phone buzzed. One new photo. She opened it. It was her apartment building, taken from across the street. The caption read, "See you soon?" Her hands went numb. She closed the curtains, locked the door again, and called Harris. This time, she didn't care if the man knew. He answered quickly. She explained the photo, her voice shaking. "I'm sending a car to stay outside your place tonight," Harris said. "Don't open the door for anyone except us." She agreed, but even after the patrol car parked outside, sleep didn't come. At 3:12 a.m., she was jolted awake by a soft tapping on her window. She froze. The blinds were closed, but the tapping came again, slow, deliberate. Maria's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the faint sound of footsteps moving away. Maria sat frozen in her bed, her breath shallow. The faint tapping on her window had stopped, but her ears strained for any sound outside. She could hear the low hum of the patrol car's engine on the street, but nothing else. She reached for her phone on the nightstand and typed a quick message to Detective Harris. "Someone was at my window." Within 2 minutes, her phone buzzed. "Stay inside. Don't move. Officers are checking now." She gripped the blanket tightly as she listened. The creak of footsteps on the fire escape outside her window made her pulse race again. She wanted to peek, but the thought of seeing that hooded figure on the other side of the blinds kept her frozen in place. A muffled voice called from outside, "Police? Stay where you are," followed by the sound of hurried movement, metal clanging as someone scrambled down the escape. Then, the heavy thud of boots hitting the pavement. Shouts erupted below her apartment. 2 more voices joined in, the words blurred by the pounding in her ears. Then silence. Her phone rang. Harris's voice was urgent. "Maria," he got away. "But we have a description now. Gray hoodie, black jeans, scar on the left cheek. Stay put. We're going to keep a car outside your building until we find him." Maria's throat felt dry. "Do you think he's the one from a hotel?" Harris didn't hesitate. "I'm sure of it." The rest of the night stretched endlessly. Every creak of the building made her jump. When morning finally came, the patrol car was still outside, the officers nodding to her as she left for work. At the Blue Haven, the atmosphere was tighter than ever. Guests moved about as usual, but Maria could feel the staff watching her, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. Rosa caught her near the service elevator. "I heard what happened last night. You should be staying with someone. My cousin has a spare room." Maria shook her head. "I don't want to bring this to anyone else's door." She tried to work as normal, starting on the 9th floor, but the first room she entered made her stop in the doorway. On the desk sat a single hotel envelope. Her name was written on it in thick black marker. She closed the door behind her and opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a photo of her sleeping in her bed. The back of the photo had a message, "I'm closer than you think." Her legs felt weak. She picked up the room phone and called Mr. Grant immediately. Within minutes, he and Harris were in the room, looking at the photo. "Where exactly did you find this?" Harris asked. "On the desk. I just walked in," she said. Grant's jaw tightened. "We're pulling camera footage from this floor for the last 24 hours. Harris placed the photo in an evidence bag. "Maria, I think he's been inside your apartment before. That's how he got this." The thought made her stomach turn. "But my locks." "He's good," Harris said grimly. "Locks won't stop someone like him if he wants in." They had her finish the floor with Rosa as a partner. Even with someone else there, Maria found herself glancing at the door every few seconds. Every knock, every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Around midday, while cleaning 1008, Rosa froze near the window. "Maria, come here." Maria stepped over. Across the street, on the roof of a parking garage, stood the man in the gray hoodie. Even from this distance, she could see him raise his phone, pointing it toward their window. Rosa pulled the curtains shut. "He's bold. Too bold." Harris arrived within minutes after they called him, but by the time officers checked the garage, the man was gone. Maria's nerves were fraying. By the end of the shift, her hands were sore from gripping the cleaning cart too tightly. That evening, Harris insisted on driving her home himself. If he's watching you, he's watching your routine. Changing it might throw him off. They took a different route, circling through side streets before stopping at her building. The patrol car was already waiting. Inside, Maria checked every corner of her apartment. She left the lights on, even in the bathroom. She thought maybe exhaustion would knock her out, but every small sound kept her alert. At 2:47 a.m., her phone vibrated. A text from the unknown number. "Tomorrow we meet." Maria stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She typed back without thinking. "What do you want?" The reply came instantly. "You'll find out. At work." Sleep was impossible after that. The next morning, she didn't eat breakfast. She arrived at the hotel early and went straight to Harris. He read the text and nodded slowly. "Good. This means he's getting cocky. We'll be ready." Harris stationed 2 undercover officers in the lobby and another in the service corridors. He told Maria to go about her work as normally as possible. Easier said than done. Every time she turned a corner, she expected to see him standing there. Every guest's face became suspect. By late morning, she was sent to clean room 305. The moment she stepped inside, her skin prickled. On the bed was another envelope. She opened it. Inside was a single word: "Downstairs." Her phone buzzed. Another message: "Alone." Maria stared at the envelope in her hand. Her pulse thudded so loud she could barely hear her own breathing. "Downstairs," it said, as if the word alone could pull her into a trap. Her phone buzzed again. "Alone." She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "No, not this time." Instead of heading straight for the lobby, she slipped the note into her apron pocket and walked calmly into the hallway. The moment she was out of sight, she ducked into the service corridor where Harris was stationed. "He's here," she said quickly, handing him the envelope. Harris scanned it, his eyes narrowing. "Good. We control the meeting, not him." He spoke into his radio. "All units, eyes on the lobby. Maria, you'll go down, but we'll be around you the whole time. Act natural. He can't know we're expecting him." Her stomach churned, but she nodded. She took the service elevator, gripping the cart handle so tightly her knuckles hurt. The doors opened to the lobby's quiet hum, the clink of a bell at the front desk, the low murmur of guests checking in. She pushed her cart slowly across the marble floor, scanning the room without turning her head too much. That's when she saw him, leaning casually against a pillar near the revolving door, gray hoodie up, hands in pockets. Even with his head slightly down, she recognized the sharp scar across his cheek. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept moving. She rolled the cart toward a corner where she could get a better view. Harris and another plainclothes officer were blending in, pretending to talk near the front desk. The man lifted his head. Their eyes met. A slow, unsettling smile spread across his face. He mouthed something she couldn't hear, then tapped his temple, as if to say, "I know you." Then he turned and walked toward the exit. "Don't follow," Harris said firmly into his radio. "Let him go. We've got him on camera, and he knows she's not alone." But as the man reached the door, he glanced over his shoulder and winked. Maria's knees almost buckled. Harris stepped in quickly. "You did perfect. You gave him nothing. That frustrates guys like him." She went back to work, but her mind kept replaying that moment. The wink, the scar, the way he moved like he owned the place. An hour later, as she cleaned the second floor, Rosa rushed in. "Maria, you need to see this." Rosa pulled her into the laundry room. On one of the sorting tables lay a folded housekeeping uniform. On top of it, another photo. It was a man in a hoodie, standing outside Maria's apartment door. Harris arrived within minutes. His jaw clenched as he studied the photo. "This means he's watching both your home and work. He's not just following you, he's planning something." That night, Maria didn't go home. Harris arranged for her to stay in a secure room at the hotel with an officer posted nearby. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, every sound from the hallway making her flinch. Around 3:15 a.m., there was a knock on the door. 3 short taps. She froze. Harris had told her no one would disturb her unless it was urgent. The taps came again, softer this time. She picked up the phone and dialed Harris's number. He answered instantly. "You're safe. I'm downstairs. Do not open the door." A moment later, she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway, followed by the sound of someone running, fast. Then Harris's voice shouting, "Stop! Police!" The commotion faded as they chased the suspect toward the stairwell. Maria pressed her ear to the door, listening to the echoes of the pursuit. 10 minutes later, Harris returned, breathless. He slipped away again. "But we're close," he's getting sloppy. The next day, the Blue Haven felt different. Guests still smiled. The staff still worked, but everyone's eyes kept darting toward the entrances. Word had spread. Maria tried to focus, but every reflection in a window made her turn. While dusting the lobby, she spotted a shadow move outside the glass doors. She turned quickly, but it was just a delivery man carrying a crate of bottled water. Still, the tension was building. Everyone could feel it. By late afternoon, Harris called her into the manager's office. "We're setting a trap tonight. He's expecting you to walk home." Instead, you'll leave through the side exit. We'll tail him when he follows." Maria's chest tightened. "And if he doesn't?" Harris gave a thin smile. "Then we know he's smarter than we thought. But I don't think he'll resist." That evening, she clocked out as usual, putting on her jacket and walking toward the lobby doors. At the last second, she turned toward the service corridor, slipping through the staff exit that led to a narrow alley. An unmarked police car idled at the far end, waiting for her. She climbed in, her heart pounding. Through the side mirror, she caught sight of movement. The man in the hoodie had stepped into the alley, scanning left and right like a predator tracking prey. He started walking toward them. Harris's voice came over the radio. "Hold position. Let him get closer." The man's pace quickened. The distance closed 30 feet. 20. 15. "Now!" Harris barked. The car doors flew open. 2 officers sprang out, rushing him from both sides. The man bolted, shoving one officer hard against the wall, and sprinted toward the street. Maria watched, her hands gripping the seat, as the chase exploded into traffic. Horns blared. A woman screamed. The man dodged between cars, nearly clipped by a motorcycle. Harris tackled him near the curb, but the man twisted free, throwing an elbow into his ribs. Then he vanished into a maze of side streets. Breathing hard, Harris returned to the car. "We almost had him. Almost." Maria could see the frustration in his eyes, but also something else, determination. "He's running out of places to hide," Harris said quietly. "And when he slips next time, we'll be there." The following morning, the air around the Blue Haven felt charged, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Maria woke in the secure hotel room to the faint hum of the hallway air conditioner and the steady sound of an officer pacing outside her door. She had barely slept. When Harris knocked at 8 a.m., she already had her jacket on. "We're moving early," he said, his tone clipped. "We're going to draw him out in daylight this time." Maria's pulse spiked. "Daylight. Crowds give him confidence," Harris said, "but they also give us cover." They walked together through the staff corridors until they reached the rear loading dock. 2 plainclothes officers leaned casually against a delivery truck, sipping coffee. Across the street, another unmarked car waited. "You'll head down Market Street," Harris instructed. "We'll keep our distance. Just act like you're running errands. The moment you see him, don't react." Maria nodded, though her palms were slick with sweat. She stepped out into the busy street. Vendors were setting up fruit stands. The smell of roasting peanuts mixed with the diesel exhaust of passing buses. She kept her pace steady, eyes on the cracked pavement ahead. Half a block later, she felt it, that prickling awareness, like someone standing too close in an elevator. She didn't turn her head, but in the reflection of a shop window, she saw him, hoodie gone, now wearing a baseball cap. But the scar was unmistakable. He was on the same side of the street, maybe 20 yards back, pretending to browse a newsstand. She walked on, passing a bakery with golden light, spilling from its windows. A delivery boy came out balancing a tray of bread, and Maria sidestepped quickly, which gave her another quick glimpse of the man's reflection. He was following. Harris's voice crackled softly in her earpiece. "We got eyes on him. Keep going." She reached a small plaza where street performers were setting up. The man slowed, drifting behind a group of tourists. His gaze stayed locked on her. Suddenly, a delivery van rolled between them. Harris's voice tightened. "He's crossing, moving fast." Maria's heart raced. She reached for her phone, pretending to check a text while edging toward a crowded cafe patio. Harris's orders came through sharp. "Hold there. He's coming in close." The man stepped into the patio space, pretending to study the chalkboard menu. He was only 6 feet away now, his lips curving into that same slow smile from a hotel lobby. Then, just as Harris signaled to move, chaos erupted. A cyclist swerved to avoid a child who had darted away from his mother, and the bike slammed into one of the plainclothes officers. Chairs clattered, people shouted, and in confusion, the man lunged toward Maria. She stumbled backward, knocking over a table. Hot coffee splashed across the pavement as the man grabbed her wrist. Harris barreled in from the side, tackling him hard. They crashed into a metal railing, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The man fought like a cornered animal, twisting and throwing wild punches. Another officer joined, forcing him to the ground. For a second, Maria thought they had him, until the man shoved his shoulder into Harris's chest, rolled sideways, and bolted into the street. "Go, go, go!" Harris shouted, sprinting after him. Maria stood frozen, breathing hard as the chase wove through traffic. Horns blared. A bus driver cursed, and pedestrians scattered. The man darted into an alley, Harris right behind him. Minutes passed. Maria's hands were shaking. Then Harris returned, furious. He slipped through a back exit into the subway. Cameras will catch him, but... He didn't finish the sentence. That night, Maria refused to be left alone. Harris stayed posted outside her temporary room. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Messages from Rosa, her brother, and even Mrs. Delgado from next door kept coming in. Are you okay? Have they caught him? But the answer was still no. Near midnight, Harris knocked. We've traced him to a storage facility across town. We're going in tomorrow morning. I want you nowhere near it. For the first time in days, Maria felt a small spark of hope. The next morning, she sat with a steaming mug of tea in the staff lounge, eyes fixed on the clock. Every tick felt slower than the last. Then Harris walked in, dust on his jacket, a grim look on his face. He wasn't there, he said, but we found something. A wall of photos. Every picture is of you, leaving work, shopping, even in your apartment kitchen. Maria's stomach twisted. How? He's been inside your building more than once, Harris said quietly, and he's bold enough to get close without anyone noticing. The officers exchanged looks. They knew what Maria knew. This man wasn't just playing games anymore. He was preparing for something final. The rain started before dawn, drumming on the roof of the safe house. Maria woke to the smell of damp air and the faint creak of the hallway floorboards. Harris stood at the window, phone in hand. They found him, he said without looking back. Abandoned warehouse, South Dock. We move now. Maria's throat tightened. And you're sure? This time we got him boxing. Harris cut in. No back exits, no subway access. Just steel walls. They left in an unmarked SUV, wipers cutting across the windshield as the city blurred past. The docks were quiet except for the distant moan of a ship horn. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp in the damp air. When they arrived, for other unmarked cars were already in place. Officers in dark jackets moved like shadows, forming a perimeter around a rusted corrugated building. Harris turned to Maria. Stay in the vehicle. No exceptions. But as the team advanced, Maria could feel the same pull that followed her for weeks, the need to see this end, to know it was over. She shifted in her seat, eyes scanning every movement. The team breached the side door in one fluid motion. Shouts echoed inside, followed by the heavy clatter of boots on concrete. Then came a muffled crash, the sound of metal hitting the floor. Maria leaned forward, straining to see through the rain-streaked windshield. Suddenly, the warehouse's front door burst open, and he exploded through it, hood up, eyes wild. He was faster than she remembered, his shoes splashing through puddles as he sprinted toward the fence at the edge of the lot. Maria's breath caught. He was heading straight for the side street that led into the maze of shipyard alleys. If he made it there, he'd vanish again. Without thinking, she threw open the SUV door and ran. Her shoes slipped on the wet pavement, but she kept her eyes locked on him. He glanced over his shoulder, saw her, and that twisted smile flickered across his face. Even now, in the middle of the chase. Maria, get back. Harris's voice thundered behind her. The man darted left, tried to lose her behind a stack of shipping crates. She followed, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. When she rounded the corner, he was waiting, not running, waiting. In 2 steps he closed the gap, his hand clamping around her arm. The force spun her sideways into the crate. Pain shot through her shoulder. You made this easy, he hissed. His grip was like iron. Maria's free hand fumbled for the small canister in her coat pocket. The pepper spray Harris had insisted she carry. She shoved it upward and fired point-blank into his face. The man screamed, stumbling backward, clawing at his eyes. Harris and 2 officers came barreling into the alley, tackling him so hard the 3 of them hit the ground in a tangle of limbs. One officer wrenched his arm behind his back. Another snapped cuffs onto his wrists. Got him, Harris shouted. Maria stood frozen, chest heaving, rain dripping from her hair. The man twisted once more to look at her, eyes red and streaming, his voice ragged. This isn't. Harris yanked him upright, cutting him off. It's over. And this time it was... By afternoon, Maria was back at her apartment. The locks had been changed, security cameras installed. Rosa was in the kitchen making tea, the air filled with a familiar scent of chamomile. Outside, the city went on, buses rumbling, shop doors opening, life moving forward. Maria sat by the window, hands wrapped around the warm mug. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe without looking over her shoulder. The weight was gone, but she knew she would never forget the sound of footsteps behind her in a quiet street, or the truth Harris had told her that first night, that danger, once it finds you, changes you forever. Still, she told herself as the rain eased and sunlight broke through clouds, she had something stronger now. She had survived. If you like this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also an other to strengthen our community. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.